we've got another one from Big Shovel Bob. He says, hello, the wife and I are in our mid-30s and working 1099. Our combined income is $1.4 million with $250K net worth. We are on step 3 of the FOO because we have $400K in student loans. How do we plan for retirement? A friend mentioned cash balance plans. This sounds like an interesting situation. So what would you say to Big Shovel Bob?
So I want to make sure I got this right. Mid-30s, $1.4 million household income, $250,000 net worth, $400,000 in student loans.
So that means the $1.4 million probably is a newfound thing.
Right.
Yeah, because
that's what I thought
probably
too.
medical professionals.
Big Shovel, I love the name, by the way. Big Shovel, because that's what I always talk about, having a big income. So Big Shovel Bob is very appropriate. But it has not shown up on his net worth statement just yet.
Well, I think it's so interesting is you may be out there listening and be like, oh man, this cat makes $1.5 million. I bet the rules are different from them. I bet the way that they approach their financial decisions is different. And what you're going to be amazed to hear, Big Shovel Bob, is that we're going to say the first thing you got to do, you got to start with the FOO. Brian, we got the thing up. If you want your own copy, you can go to moneyguy.com/resources because you have to determine, based on where you are in your financial journey, what do each one of these buckets fall into? And so when I hear $400,000 of student loans, I'm like, ooh, that's a lot of debt. But the thing that I don't know is what is the interest rate on those student loans? And for you in your mid-30s, do those student loans count as high interest debt or do they count as low interest debt? You have to answer that question first before then you can begin navigating, okay, well, when it comes to allocating my resources and when it comes to figuring out what types of retirement accounts I should use, do I do a 401k or do I do a cash balance plan? You have to make sure you're following the financial order of operations in the right order.
Yeah. All terrain, all weather, all income types. This thing works. I mean, that's the reality is because what Bo just described, steps 1 through 3, that student loan, we got to figure out, is it high interest debt or is it more like the low interest debt of step 9? And then that's going to allow you to keep progressing. Then you go, of course, not want to skip and sleep on emergency reserves. Because even though because here's the thing that scares me is when you have a high income, like $1.4 million, it is so easy. I used to deal with professional athletes at one of the early firms I worked at, and they just feel like they have so much money coming in. The problem is, it's short-lived. I mean, the typical NFL career is less than 3 years. At least that's what it was back when I was managing their money when we did some presentations. And I remember thinking about the fact that, yes, it looks like on paper you have all the world just held on. You're holding it on a string. But if you don't actually turn this into net worth, it's a lost opportunity because I don't know if this $1.4 million, is this something you'll make 1 year? Is this something you'll make 5 years? Is this something you'll make 10 years? Either way, we need to maximize the moment. And that's why the financial order of operations is going to get you through the base level stuff, then help you with the maximization to build your good financial foundation, meaning this shows up on your net worth statement. And then, yes, once you get into steps 8 and 9, let's pay off that student loan debt if it's low, even if it's low interest debt. That's what we try to walk you through, Big Shovel. And I think congratulations. And I love that you found our content right as you're at this incredible fork in the road moment. So get out there and make it happen.
Yeah, I think so. Just so you can take some little nuggets away from this, because Big Shovel Bob did say the average interest rate on the student loans is around 6.5%, but they're in their mid-30s. So one, when you think about opportunity cost, obviously satisfying 6.5% debt. It sounds good. That's a good, noble thing. But you are in this unique situation where your tax rate on the federal side at $1.4 million, not knowing your actual tax return, probably going to be 37% marginal. And then I don't know what state that you live in. So you do have to think about, with every dollar that I deploy, where will that dollar be most efficiently, most effectively utilized? There is a chance that some sort of retirement plan, like a cash balance or something like that, might make sense, because if you could put in, at your age, $200,000 into a cash balance plan, there's a chance I could save you $100,000 in taxes. Well, with that $100,000 of tax savings, you could then theoretically take that and apply it to your student loan. So that way it's not an either or, it's a both and. And I would argue at an income, even though it's relatively new, he said just entered the workforce a couple years ago. Even though that income is relatively new, at $1.4 million of household income, I would argue you, with that big shovel, ought to be able to satisfy a number of different financial goals simultaneously. Saving on taxes, building liquid wealth, as well as satisfying student loans.
This is the complexity. Look, I always say I love that our content is free and it's so approachable for everyone out there. But when somebody like Big Shovel comes along, you got unique stuff going on. Because Bo, I'll put this in the words that Bo was saying, is that just like step 2 is if your employer is offering you 50 cents on the dollar, you kind of have to jump on that free money because it's just a once in a lifetime opportunity. If you're paying 50 cents on the dollar in taxes, which somebody in there making over $1 million is a good chance that you're paying, especially depending on which state you live in, you could be getting very close to paying 50 cents on the dollar, especially with self-employment taxes and other things that you stack on top of it. So that is something you really will need to pay attention to, the nuances of what do you do with your next dollar. And this is the complexity of where taking the relationship to the next level, even though you're on the early part of the net worth. You want to make sure you don't mess this up. And that's the part. If you just don't know where your blind spots are, you just don't know what planning tools are in your back pocket. Because here's the other thing about cash balance plans. I love cash balance plans. We use those. We use those with clients. But cash balance plans in the past were set up with life insurance products. Then it wasn't not that many years ago, you've got these third-party administrators that allow you now to open this up to where you could even buy index funds and all kind of other low-cost things that don't have some of the headaches that those insurance products had. But you've got to make sure you're tying into the right person that tells you the full bag of tools at your disposal, not just what they're selling.